afternoon. Lovely to be here with you all. My name is DocLiraz, and I will be presenting today. I'm so excited to have you. And so we begin with this. Remember a while back where we used to print the directions of the internet and then get in our car where we're trying to navigate somewhere, and we would take the physical paper looking down and up at the road, just not to miss the exit signs. Remember that? How about when we wanted to find a piece of information? I mean, we really wanted to know something. And so what we would do is we would go to encyclopedias, right? Volumes and volumes of books called encyclopedias. Or we would physically go into the library and sit for hours trying to find something. Well, guess what? Nowadays, the world is a very different place, right? The information is at the tip of our fingers, and we no longer have to wait. And so this rapid, fast-changing world is the world our children live in. And it's wonderful, right? Technology is amazing. We know that children born past the year of 2007 will never know a world without smartphones. These will be the kids who are sitting on their sofa, being able to swipe quickly left and right, until they find a potential mate to marry. In the comfort of their living room, they will be able to click a button and get groceries right away on their doorstep. And they will be the people who are sitting connected to their loved ones all over the world as they are able to FaceTime or see the loved ones on video. So yes, technology is great. But nowadays, what we're experiencing is our children are more disconnected than ever before. They're walking around like zombies, looking at their screens. And the number one complaint that I see when I speak to preschool directors is that of misbehavior. They just simply don't understand how these children are aggressive, they're rude, they're defiant. So what is going on here? And this is what we're going to dive into for the next hour. I would love to take you on a journey to study the child's brain. We're going to look at the good, the bad, and the ugly effects of technology on the developing brain. And today I will talk about the formative years, which are the years 0 to 8 years old. Because as we know, these are the years that matter. It's the most critical time for development where the brain's pathways are chiseled. And this will lead to the development of the adult brain. So I like to say we need to get it right from the start. I am a neuroscientist. I've gone to school for many years to study the brain. I absolutely adore it. I am also an educator. I work a lot with preschools. I work with early childhood educators. But very importantly, I'm also a mom. And that's where it gets very personal for me. So based on what I'll show you today, I have changed my own habits with my daughter, who is 8 years old now. And so we don't have that much technology at home, but with my 8-year-old, I've gone back and changed some habits. So I hope that this talk will provide some insights for you as well. I'd like to view technology like this, like a double-edged sword. So a double-edged sword is a blade that can cut and slice and dice on both sides. It can actually cut the attacker and the defender. So we have to be very careful with that. And that is the technology paradox in the world we live in today. On the one side, it can be great. It's a brilliant tool. Technology is really brilliant. It can connect us, as I highlighted. It can create progress and innovation. But on the other side of the coin, it can also lead to developmental delays, language delays, cognitive impairment, and also misbehavior, which I will touch upon. So now I'd like to tell you a story. What happens when technology and toddlers come together, when they mix? So over the summer, I had a very good friend of mine come over to our neighborhood swimming pool. We went for a swim, and she brought her 2 children, a 4-year-old and a 2-year-old. Came along, these toddlers. My daughter was delighted. It was a beautiful day in the summer. The birds are chirping, the sun is shining, the water temperature is just perfect. And so these kids come over, and we play at the pool. It was time to end the play date. And so my friend takes the 2-year-old, and she tries to change the toddler out of the wet swimsuit and into dry clothes. And as she does that, the toddler catches a glimpse of the phone, my friend's phone, because my friend was trying to communicate with her husband about dinner plans. And so this toddler sees the phone, and she just absolutely has to have it. And so she uses a cute toddler language to try to get the phone. And when the mother hands over the phone, the toddler is absolutely mesmerized. She's pressing buttons like this. She's swiping left and swiping right, just like a pro. And I have never seen anything like that. It's such a young kid. And so my friend laughs about it, and of course the toddler doesn't get far because the phone is locked. Mom was smart enough to lock the phone, but apparently this toddler knows a lot about what this phone does. She knows she's probably spent time on the device, maybe looking at her father, maybe watching something on the phone. And to get the phone, at the end, the mother demands the phone, and the toddler will not give it up. She refuses. Now, we tried everything. We tried talking to her, facial expressions, toddlers are attracted to facial expressions and language and song. Nothing worked. Not even the amazing pool toys we were offering her. And finally, mother says, you know what? I'm going to give you a yummy snack. Are you ready? Can I have the phone? And the toddler says no. And at that point, it's a full-blown temper tantrum to try to get the phone from this child. So what I'm trying to illustrate with this example is this. It's not her fault at all. In fact, there's something in the brain called dopamine. Dopamine is a special neurotransmitter that's released when we are learning, or it's called the motivation and reward neurotransmitter. So it's dumped into the brain. Now, when we engage in technology, we get this high, this dopamine high. And that's exactly what was happening for this child. She knows the phone is something marvelous, and she wants to get in and access it and use it, and her brain is flooded with dopamine. And companies do this on purpose. All the apps we use, the TV programs we watch, it's all geared towards getting us addicted to it. So let me take you back to evolution to show you exactly how the human brain works, because I personally find it absolutely fascinating. So as humans, we have evolved over millions of years in a slow evolutionary process. Now, if you glance right here, you could see that, yes, we evolved quite a bit, and we've come a long way from the chimpanzees, our cousins, as the lineage of our Homo sapiens split. But here's the thing. From the moment we split from the chimpanzees with the development of language, the development of art, whether it was music, dance, or drawing on caves, and the invention of tools, from those moments, the human brain started to change, and change favorably. We developed a very strong, very efficient prefrontal cortex. And the moment we figured out how we could use the tools to make fire, it was like magic. Because once you rub the rocks together and you make fire, now, think about this, now we can go and hunt the big game animals, bring it over, cook them, and actually use that meat to eat. And then the brain and the body gets more nutrients that were not even available before the invention of fire. And now we have evolved a tremendously efficient, smart, amazing brain. And so without even being an expert, you could immediately tell that the Homo sapiens skull has increased in size, so did the brain, and so did the neurons, the functional structural units of the brain, so it made us smarter. Now the reason I'm telling you this is because we know that right now we are evolving slowly, as I've illustrated, but technology is evolving way faster. So what that means is we cannot even keep up, evolutionarily speaking, with the evolution of technology. So this is where experts like Dr. Jean Twenge and Jonathan Haidt come in. They have written some marvelous books trying to make sense of what's happening to this generation growing up with the technology. And this is sort of a social experiment. So when you look at Generation Z, you see that on the screen. It's the last generation illustrated here. These are nicknamed the iGen. I generation for users of iPhone and technology. And this generation, born between 1997 to 2012, these kids will never know a world without the technology. They've evolved with that. So we're looking nowadays at young parents. Basically, these are the adolescents coming of age. And you see remarkable changes in their mental health. They're not doing so well. And so Dr. Twinge, who is an amazing researcher, she published a book showing with really great detail and statistics how this generation has evolved to be more depressed, more anxious, and she attributes it, she says that it's attributed to the fact that this generation is delayed developmentally. What do we mean? It's like, imagine taking a 15-year-old and putting that 15-year-old brain in an 18-year-old body. Those are the kind of changes that we're seeing in these children. So they're very much delayed. Then Jonathan Haidt comes along and he says, you know what? I think, I'm a social psychologist, I'm going to study this and get to the bottom of it. And his theory about this, why it's happening, is due to the culture of safetyism. You know, parents are so worried since the 1980s they will not allow their children out of their sight. Children can't take their bikes and go to the end of the neighborhood to visit a friend anymore. This culture of, oh my gosh, my kid is going to get kidnapped, this kind of thinking prevents kids from having risks. And that's exactly what Jean Twinge found in her research, that this aversion to risks, when she graphed these statistics, she saw, well, in fact, these 18-year-old kids have never been on a date. They've never sipped alcohol. These are minor little risks that if you don't take when you're so young, guess what? Your brain cannot develop properly to be a responsible adult. You have to experience the world in this way. And so this is one of the messages, and we call it the great rewiring. Something is going on in these children's brains to wire them differently. And so briefly, I'll take you through these powerful statistics. We have Generation Z called the anxious generation, because if you look at this graph, a graph for depression, what you will find is that when you graph this is the timeline, the number of years, against the percent of depression, self-reported depression, what you see in both males and females, the graphs spike when these children reach 2007, when the smartphones come on the scene. There's a huge spike with females. As you can see, females are more depressed than males. Then when you look at the right-hand side for suicide and unhappiness, unhappiness is graphed on the bottom, suicide is on the top. What you can see is with the number of hours, excess number of hours spent engaging in technology, this includes TV, apps, anything you can imagine, phones, the number of hours, it's indicated on the x-axis, you see a significant increase, like a dose-response curve, for both unhappiness corresponding to the suicide rates in this Generation Z. And I tell you why this is concerning, because our children right now are heading the same way with the engagement in these devices. And so the era of technology zombies, I call it. So what's happening here? That's the question we should be asking. What is going on for these children that's making them so? If they're not taking risks, they're not going out to nature, they're not experiencing life the way that maybe you and I grew up, what in the world are they doing? And so according to the statistics, 98% of households in the United States have some sort of device available that's connected to the internet. And these children, statistically speaking, are engaging in technology 2.5 hours per day. Now try to wrap your head around that. That is tremendous. And so we're thinking about this, and we need to ask ourselves, where are we going to take this next generation of children? Okay, so now for a personal example. And so I have been married for approximately 10 years. I have a lovely husband. I got lucky. And sometimes when I go down to the basement, that's where his man cave is located. And so when I go down to the basement, I often see this. So I see a person playing video games. Now he claims that playing video games have made him so good as a physician, because that's his occupation. He's a physician, saving lives every single day. And he's always told me that he's played video games since he was very young. And of course, the neuroscientist in me didn't want to believe that it's anything good. I said, oh, you're just trying to tell me it's helping your physician skills, right? But then, his skills are so specialized, he can put an airway inside a person's trachea. He can block nerves, very specific nerves in the brain. He can insert cameras in the human body, which takes, if you think about it, takes tremendous skill. How is he able to do all of that? And so I let it go, right? Until the day he bought my daughter her first Nintendo. 8 years old, she gets a Nintendo. And I say, oh, no, the neuroscientist in me has to go investigate. That is not going to happen, right, in my house. So I went back into the literature, I looked, and now I'm going to present the evidence for you. Are video games good or bad for child and children development? So here I confess to you that my husband was absolutely right. Video games are amazing for the brain and development when used sparingly. What I mean is when used, they say in the literature, in moderation. So what do they actually do? So I'm going to take you through some of the evidence because I think this is so amazing. With video games, you get to train your brain. You get to train those pathways when you wire the brain, so you repeat something over and over and over again, you wire the brain. And so the first thing video games do is they improve vision. The vision of video gamers has been shown to be significantly better than non-video gamers. So if you think about it, if you are playing a video game and there's a bad guy and you're focusing on taking care of this bad guy, but then in the periphery you see other people coming at you, you have to be so specialized with your vision. You have to completely pay attention to that. So the visual system develops in this particular way. Second way video games, what they do is they train focused attention. We know that even in cases of ADHD, if you train that attention, if you build those pathways, if you wire the brain in that certain way, you can build a better brain. And that's exactly what these video games are doing. They're creating a better brain. Focused attention, we know structures like the frontal cortex, the parietal cortex, the anterior cingulate. These structures get trained and improve with time. We also know that video games, they build better thinking. So right here on the right-hand side, you'll see these light bulbs. That is an illustration of what divergent thinking looks like. So if today I came and I asked you to solve a problem, and you are able to give me multiple solutions just like that, then you have something we call divergent thinking. And in fact, video gamers, because they have to constantly problem solve, think of any video game, you have to troubleshoot, problem solve, overcome the obstacles, their thinking changes and they become more imaginative, and these are the innovators we want in our society. Another thing video games do is they can make us exercise. Remember the Dance Revolution game, where you get to dance on the floor and pay attention to a song on the video game? There are extra games, they're called, that can help us move and go everywhere, and so it's good for cardiovascular health. Movement is wonderful. And the last thing is, and these have been clinical studies done showing that VR technology, so when they put a headset on you and you are immersed in this magical world, right? This is a virtual world. When you do that, it tricks your brain into thinking, hey, this is reality, and you get to wire the pathways. So stroke patients that need rehabilitation, people with ADHD, the VR can really wire the brain. So they're very therapeutic, these video games. So all in all, this is a good thing, right? So this was the evidence for the good, but what about the bad? And so I will tell you that there's more negative evidence or evidence showing that technology impairs the brain. And so it's so bad, in fact, that the analogy is to cigarette smoking. When we smoke a cigarette, what happens is thousands upon thousands of chemicals are released systemically into the bloodstream, and they flow into all the organs, and eventually, long-term, may lead to cancer and death. And screens are just as bad, believe it or not. So in this study that I'm highlighting here, they took 3 to 5-year-olds that they know from surveys are exposed to excessive TV. So, or devices, it could be anything. But these children are engaged in technology for 4 to 5 hours a day. That's called excessive. And so when they took these children and they put them in an MRI machine and imaged the brain just like this, they saw the blue color highlights the white matter in the brain. Now we know we have a lot of white matter in the brain because these are the tracks connecting different brain structures to one another. Another way to think about it is think about cables. These are like telephone wires connecting one structure to the other. And the more connections you have, the better your brain, the more efficient it is, and the smarter you are. But these kids are in trouble because when you look at the right and the left hemisphere right here in the center, you see that these connections are diminished. And so this is bad news for these kids. They're not making new connections. What's a way to make new connections and increase the white matter in the brain? Learning a new skill. Learning how to play a musical instrument, going outside in the real world, playing with friends on the playground, those social emotional learning, believe it or not, the social emotional that we do every single day builds a better brain, and it's very, very complicated for the brain to engage in those sorts of things. Well, these children are really in trouble when they have excessive technology. Another point to make here is that secondhand smoke, we know, can kill us. If a child grows up in that environment that is not good, can create pathology. The same goes, and these are physiological changes we're talking about. The same goes with background noise running in the household. Let's say a TV is on and the parents are watching the news, but the toddler's on the floor playing with Legos. Just absorbing that language, just whatever's coming off of that TV, that white noise prevents or I would say damages development somewhat because they have shown that these children are developmentally delayed. And they also show that these children that are listening to technology in the background also don't have language skills as advanced as someone who does not. So this is really bad news. Now I talked about structure, but what about function? Just because a little structure is changing in the brain doesn't mean you're going to have huge changes, right? Wrong. In terms of technology, we see amazingly big changes, significant changes to really important brain structures. So this other study that I found, and there's many out there, but I'm highlighting this particular one because it was an international team of scientists looking at 30,000 kids, which is huge. They looked at, they basically clumped together a lot of the neuroimages from children under 12 years old. And they wanted to see, the question was this, in children under 12, what is happening in terms of their brain plasticity? You know, those are the critical periods. We're hitting all these critical periods in the first 12 years of life. What's happening to these major brain structures when these kids are engaging the screens in excess? And so this is what they find. The prefrontal cortex, right here in the center, in the front of the head, responsible for attention, planning, decision making. It's really the brain CEO. They see huge changes there. They also see big changes in the parietal cortex, in the middle there. That is responsible to sense the outer world, sensing our environment. So think about it. All this information, sight, taste, smell, everything coming in as the brain has to understand the world, that part of the brain is compromised. They also see changes in the auditory cortex or the temporal lobe right here behind your ears. That is a key area responsible for language. memory processing, as you can see, emotions even, and auditory sounds, that part of the brain is suffering. And finally, they see big visual changes. So even the pathways for the eyes, because you know when children watch TV, they may watch something very fast and exciting, and that causes visual changes to the way the eyes bring in information into the brain. And so this is really something interesting that's happening. Finally, the last piece of the puzzle is, okay, so I told you that physiologically structure is changing. I told you that functionally some major parts of the brains are changing, but now the big one, because in neuroscience we learn, look, just because function and structure are changing does not mean that psychologically, behaviorally, the children will be different, but they are. And that was my key question, is it affecting behavior? Yes, absolutely. This is a team of Japanese researchers, because we have, that's a westernized kind of world. They have huge problems with technology as well. A Japanese team set out to determine what is technology doing to the child's brain. Now this study is amazing. It just came out in 2023. They took 1-year-olds, just little infants. And they said, okay, these infants have been exposed to lots and lots of technology screen time. I don't know if you can make this out here, but I'll walk you through it. On the x-axis, we have the number of hours these kids are engaged in screens. So we see more than 4 hours at the end of that graph. And they measure developmental delay, things like motor control. Are these children socially, emotionally engaged in the world? Can they problem solve? And what they see is really bad news. They see that both communication and problem-solving skills, these things are compromised in the children. So in fact, and you're asking, okay, why is that so important? Because the only way, right, according to this particular study, the only way these children are not changing their brains significantly for the worse is when the technology is less than 1 hour a day. Right there, you don't see little asterisks and nothing is happening there. But the more than 1 hour per day for these 1-year-olds, the brain starts to have impairments in terms of developmental delays. And so that is a powerful study, because it shows us that, well, we should probably be limiting our children, first of all. And second of all, think about this, and this has been reported by the World Health Organization and also the American Academy for Pediatrics. How many of our kids today, if you look, are watching or touching technology less than 1 hour per day? That is very rare, and that is the minority. And so with all of that combined, I would say we have a lot to think about. Because you see, the brain is under construction for many, many years, right? We know, according to the neuroscience, and I love this fact because I think people don't talk about it so much. We know that the human brain stops developing at the ages of mid to late 20s, which means you have so many years to affect changes in the brain, and the brain is growing, and the part of the brain that develops less is this one, the executive function, the prefrontal cortex. And so we have so many years to help our children and nurture them and help them along a good developmental trajectory. But here's the thing. How can we expect anyone, any toddler, any infant, even my daughter, 8 years old, even 12-year-old children, how can we expect them to say, Mom and Dad, I am done today with the screen. This is, time, you can have my screen, you can have my video games. It's never going to happen. Why? They can't regulate. The brain is so immature still at those stages. They can't come and say, hey, we need to remove screens right now or my development will be affected. They don't know how to stop that. And so we need to do that for them. So back to my original question, why are children misbehaving? So we know that some effects that I've read about and that experts are telling us, we know that for example, you can create antisocial kids if they're constantly on screens. They're not interacting in the real world. They forget and don't know how to socialize. You can create aggression. So imagine kids always watching superheroes shows. There's a lot of aggression there. They're learning that. These are learned behaviors. But if you take a step back, you could view it like, this is how I like to think about it, like a snowball. So imagine a tall, steep mountain. Imagine you have a ball of snow at the top. And as gravity takes its effects and the snowball is coming down, tumbling down the mountain, it's getting speed, it's getting momentum, right? And then it gathers more snow as it flows down the mountain. And by the time it reaches halfway point, it is way too late to stop it. It's so big, so heavy, that it starts what? An avalanche. And at that point, no matter what you do, and if there's a village down at the bottom of the mountain, everything is in danger, right? You cannot stop this tremendous avalanche. And that's exactly how I see children development. If we don't intervene now, if we don't put a stop to, or we regulate the screen time, we're going to create really bad behaviors. We're going to create adults that we won't even be able to handle later on. So that's where I think we're heading. So we talked about the good, we talked about the bad, but now what about the ugly? So I am not saying these men are ugly by any shape or form. What I'm saying is we're going to now take a deep dive into some of the world's greatest figures, the technology gurus, the people that gave us this amazing technology that we know and love so much today. So let's take Bill Gates, for example. So first of all, what do all these men have in common, besides the fact that they're rich? They all know something about technology that we don't. They all have placed very strict guidelines around technology when it comes to their families. And I'll take you through and show you how. Bill Gates, the creator of Microsoft, right? This amazing software that the world is using. Bill Gates is well known to have had a screen-free childhood, and he played a lot during his childhood. In interviews, he says that. It's a play-based childhood, basically. So that's good. But he also, if you talk to him and you find out about him, he's very much against technology in the classroom. He thinks that's very bad for children and development. Mark Zuckerberg, the founder of Facebook, it's tremendous technology, right? Bringing people from all over the world together on Facebook. He is well known to have gone to a Boston school that was technology free. And also his children, he has little girls, and he sends his girls to technology free Montessori schools. Think about that for a second. And then Steve Jobs, he doesn't need an introduction, but I'll tell you anyway. So this creator of Apple and the iPad, really a top-notch inventor, even the moment he created the iPad, he would not allow his kids around that. He's considered in interviews, he would say he's a low-tech parent. He doesn't really support that. So obviously, based on these examples, they know something we don't. And I think we need to start thinking in terms of what are we doing to our children and the long-term health? What are the implications?